is Dolores Huerta? A icon of Latin culture? A women's rights advocate? A promoter of better education? A activist? But really, who is she, and what was her right and responsibility? Dolores Clara Fernandez was born April 10, 1930 in Dawson, New Mexico to Alicia and Juan Fernandez. At the age of 3, Dolores and her two brothers, mother, and grandfather moved to Stockton, California. In her young life, Dolores faced a lot of racism and prejudice due to being a Latina. No matter what I did, I could never be American. Dolores kept her head up and earned her teaching degree at the University of the Pacific Delta. Briefly becoming a school teacher, Dolores couldn't stand to see so many children coming to school barefooted and hungry. This made her think there has to be something more she could do for those children, giving Dolores the idea to start organizing the children's farm worker parents. So Dolores quit her job as a school teacher and decided she was going to become an activist.
No with violence! Abajo! No with racism! Abajo! No with sexism! Abajo!
In 1955, she met Fred Ross, the founder of the CSO, the Stockton chapter of community service to fight for Latino economic rights. It was then at the CSO in 1962 she would meet Cesar Chavez, who also held the same intuition as her for organizing farm workers. When the CSO's ideals didn't align with those of Dolores and Cesar, they left in 1965 to create the NFWA, the National Farm Workers Association. Why did Dolores have a right and responsibility to help organize the farm workers?
Seeing that the farm workers needed help, I felt that I had a responsibility to help them because I had been very fortunate in that I had been taught how to do grassroots organizing. And I felt that with that organizing that I learned about showing how the farm workers could come together as a group and fight for their rights, that I had a responsibility to share with them what I had learned. And that way they could actually overcome all of the discriminations and the harsh treatment that they were suffering.
It was that same year that Dolores helped organize the 1965 Delano strike of 5,000 grape workers. In 1966, the NFWA joined with the AWOC, created by Filipino Americans, to create the UFW, the United Farm Workers Association.
That we did not give up.
Dolores was the UFW's lead negotiator, advocating for unemployment, healthcare, and safety for the farm workers.
People were poisoned in the fields of the United States of America.
In 1966, Dolores and Cesar led a 340-mile trek from Delano to Sacramento and strike a minimum wage for farm workers. Starting with 100 strikers, it would soon grow to thousands. In Dolores' words, showing that ordinary people could do amazing things.
That you could really change the world.
The United Farm Workers was the first successful union in the history of the United States of America that was able to advocate for farm workers and to win the rights of collective bargaining, to form a union, and the other rights of having, again, bathrooms in the field, cold drinking water, hand washing facilities, rest periods, unemployment insurance, the right to organize in the whole history of the United States of America. And so this is something to be proud of, because the workers themselves are the ones that fought for this. They went on strikes. They asked for people not to eat grapes. They had a national grape boycott where 17 million Americans stopped eating grapes. And this is the way that the farm workers were finally able to win. And so when you think about it, to think that the humble workers that pick our food, that had been deprived and discriminated for generations, were able to win just by coming together, organizing, and appealing to the American public for help and asking them to boycott grapes and lettuce and sometimes gallon wine.
This captured national attention, shedding light on the UFW and their causes. Dolores was the main force behind the nationwide table grape boycotts in the late 1960s that led to union contracts in the 1970s. In 1971, with the movement becoming so big, the UFW would move their headquarters from Delano, California to La Paz, California. In 1972, Dolores would create the union slogan, Si se puede. Si se puede translates to, yes we can.
Si se puede! Si se puede! Everybody! Si se puede!
Si se puede would go on to echo itself through history, not just in the protest of farm workers. Former President Obama would use it as his campaign slogan, being "Yes, we can."
We'll respond with that timeless creed that sums up the spirit of a people. Yes, we can.
Later on attributing it to Dolores when giving her a Presidential Medal of Freedom.
I had stolen her slogan, Si se puede, yes we can.
In 1973, she led another consumer boycott of grapes, and result the groundbreaking California Agriculture Labor Relations Act of 1975, which let farm workers form unions and bargain for better wages and conditions. Dolores' efforts to improve the lives of the farm workers was a success, gaining them rights that they were previously denied for simply being Latin people.
Our actions had lasting changes because before we started organizing farm workers, they didn't have bathrooms in the fields, they didn't have toilets, they didn't have cold drinking water, they didn't have hand washing facilities, rest periods. When they were out of work, they couldn't collect unemployment insurance. If they got sick, they couldn't collect any kind of compensation. Like now we have disability insurance that workers can also collect when they're not working. And so all of these changes that we made are lasting changes. They're all over the United States of America. No matter where farm workers are working, if they're working in New York State, if they're working in Texas, in Illinois, California, wherever, they have to have porta potties for the farm workers in the fields. They also, in California, they have the right to organize into a union. And so, but these changes are permanent changes. And so we know that those attempts that we made were successful.
Dolores would still go on to advocate for many causes, showing off her rights and responsibilities, still helping those in need. In the 1970s through 80s, Dolores would become a lobbyist, breaking gender barriers, joking, "Now as an experienced lobbyist, am I able to speak on a man-to-man basis with other lobbyists?" Continuing to do work to better the lives of others, Dolores would go to endorse many candidates, such as RFK,
Huerta, who's an old friend of mine.
Barack Obama,
Huerta picked up the plight of the farm worker and carries it to this day.
Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and Kamala Harris. Dolores' work had such an impact that she has been recognized on many levels, such as by Nancy Pelosi and the White House, and has received many awards. She would come on to receive an Eleanor Roosevelt Human Rights Award in 1998, Community of Christ International Peace Award in 2007, the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2012, and a Glamour Lifetime Award in 2020. Dolores has been recognized in media as well, such as through murals, books, and movies. Dolores has schools and streets dedicated to her, such as her town square in Boyle Heights, California. But continuing to give back to her community, she created the Dolores Huerta Foundation in Bakersfield, California. As well in Bakersfield, in 2025, she will be breaking ground for her Peace and Justice Cultural Center, dedicated to becoming a multicultural space and an organizing institute. Even at her old age of 94, this past election, she was still helping register people to vote.
As long as you're in line, they have to let you vote. So get out there, let's make sure it happens. We've got to make sure we make our way forward, right? And not go back.
Absolutely.
For all of us, especially for women, all right? And for people of color, this is our moment right now. We have to get out there and vote. Si se puede.
I don't believe that we ever give up or that our rights and responsibilities are ever ended. They're continuing throughout our entire life. For instance, we have a responsibility to engage in elections and to get engaged in find out what's going on with government. But this is a right that we have, but we also have a responsibility, because if we are not responsible, if we do not engage, we're going to lose our civil rights and our civic rights. So that's a responsibility that people often don't think about, but it's a huge responsibility, because if we want good government, then we've got to participate, we've got to be informed, and we have to engage.
Dolores Huerta was very important to Chicano history, displaying her rights and responsibilities proudly, being able to bring change to the oppressed farm workers in need.
Si se puede.